Have you ever wondered why some things float and some things sink? Or why do things that have the same volume not all have the same mass? Or why can you easily see water when it's in its liquid and solid states, but not in its gaseous state? All of these phenomena can be explained by a property of matter called density. Density measures how closely packed together the particles in the substance are to each other. The more closely packed together the particles are, the denser the substance. The less tightly packed together the particles are, the less dense the substance. For example, when observing a mixture of oil and vinegar, you clearly see that the vinegar sinks to the bottom of the container, while the oil flows to the top. This is because the vinegar is more dense, has a higher density than oil. Its particles are more closely packed together. Oil, with its more loosely spaced particles, floats on top of the vinegar. In fact, density is the reason that objects sink or float. Things that are more dense than the liquid or gas sink, and ones that are less dense float. Density is also why you can have substances that are the same size but very different masses. In the heavier object, the particles are more closely packed together than the lighter object. So even though they're the same volume, the heavier one has a clearly higher mass, making it more dense. We describe how dense something is by using a number with the units of grams per centimeters cubed or grams per milliliters or any mass divided by a unit per volume. The larger the value for density, the more tightly packed its particles are. The less tightly packed together substances will have smaller values for density. Vinegar has a density of approximately 0.95 grams per centimeters cubed. Oil, on the other hand, has a density of approximately 0.93 grams per centimeters cubed. Even though oil's density is just a little smaller than that of vinegar, it still means that it'll float. Calculating density is pretty easy. Remember how density is how closely packed together the particles of a substance are? If the substances are exactly the same size, we can just see how heavy they are to see which one is denser, but that doesn't allow us to compare all substances, and so instead we use a simple formula to determine the object's density, no matter its size. The formula for density is density equals mass divided by volume, and we can use the density triangle to help us out with some pretty simple rearranging of the formula. Looking at the four boxes at the top of the screen, we can't immediately see which one is the densest. However, by using the formula, we can then quickly see that the middle two are the same density and the one on the far right is the most dense. All right, time for the big takeaways of today's video. Number 1, density tells us about the arrangement of particles in the substance and how packed together they are. Number 2, the more dense something is, the higher the value for density. Number 3, we can calculate the density of a substance by dividing its mass by its volume. Okay. You want down?